The national champs have gone to Gyor, Hungary for a veteran quarterback with the addition of Eli Brickhandler. First of all, what a great name, Eli Brickhandler. And just to be clear, he's not actually from Gyor, Hungary, but originally from Stockton, California, bounced around the FCS level we'll get to, played football this spring in Gyor, Hungary, and now a member of the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. What a story. And we'll get into all aspects of this. But starting with Brickhandler, as we take a look here at his ESPN page, this is a guy who comes really from Houston Christian as far as college football, 6'2", 195. Looks a little smaller than that on tape, but somebody with tools, dual threat tools. Last year at Houston Christian, under 50% completion percentage, 557 yards, 4 touchdowns, but you see the rushing, 264 yards and 1 touchdown. Before that, was at HBCU, North Carolina A&T, most recently 374 yards, 50.1 or 51% completion percentage, just about 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So the stats don't wow you, but what you see with Eli Brickhandler is that this is a guy who has experience at the FCS level. At Houston Christian, knocked off number 22 McNeese State, which is a high watermark for his program. Has the international experience playing football in Gyor, Hungary, which we're going to get to those clips in a second. And most importantly, he's still available as a grad transfer late in the portal. I think for Ohio State, you said, okay, we have a situation where we have a lot of guys who have not played football, right? You're talking about, obviously, Julian Sain, your starting quarterback, Lincoln Kienholz as your backup, and then Tavian St. Clair, fresh out of high school, as your third string. So if you want to have a veteran in the room, someone who's played college football, someone who's thrown in college football games, in college football stadiums, albeit at the FCS level, there's not that many guys to choose from. And getting a guy like Eli Brickhandler this late in the game, portal's closed, no one's going to leave because he came in. It's a very low impact move to add a veteran to your room. I imagine it didn't cost any NIL, maybe just the cost of a scholarship, which this is not Notre Dame or Miami or a private school. It's expensive. So low cost move that adds a veteran to your room. At worst, you have a mobile guy who can run your scout team, who can replicate a mobile quarterback, maybe Bryce Underwood, and it can also replicate a pocket quarterback. But let's look at the highlights of this guy, and I got to look at his highlights from Hungary, right? That's where the interest is. So
nem dobja, még mindig talpon az irányító, nem tudják levinni, és ott most van hely. Brickhandler megindul.
He can certainly
és nincs senki előtte, be fogja vinni az első touchdown-t a mérkőzésen.
Who's going to play the role of Riley Leonard? Well, it would have been this guy, Eli Brickhandler.
So
he has that running ability. Look at these fields, man, these soccer fields. Different kind of game there in Hungary. I got to say, I watched a lot of high school highlights. This doesn't seem worse than your average high school highlight. Tavian St. Clair might not be playing better competition than Eli Brickhandler here in Hungary. But you see, probably not 6'2", but not 5'11", about the same size as Julian Sain. Obviously, with a little more running ability, as you can see here. And this is a veteran, right? This guy's been around. The journey from HBCU to
ismét egy motion, Takács.
Pretty unique journey.
Brickhandler.
You see some of the creativity. You see this on his FCS film as well.
Még mindig nagyon gyors lábon.
When they're not there, there's so taking a look at some of what he did at the FCS level. I mentioned the production doesn't jump out the page, right? I'm not going to lie and say it does, but what he does bring is some playmaking ability, right? So here we go. See him rolling right, guy chasing, able to deliver an accurate pass on the sideline. There's a lot of this on the film, designed rollouts like this one right here, improvisation. He's got a quick release. His arm is not bad. Obviously, Ohio State, it's pretty different caliber of quarterback you're used to, but he does have enough arm, I think, to complete passes at the FBS level. He loves to throw down the seam. He likes to, he's not much of a drive thrower. He likes to drop it in just like he does right there. You see that no matter whether he's throwing in the pocket or outside the pocket. But you do consistently see a willingness to throw the ball, a kind of playmaker's edge, and the ability to be a dual threat, which he is right here. Boom, making a guy miss, make another guy miss, getting in the end zone. So I see the value here as someone who's going to improve your team in practice, improve your room. Maybe you could, if you're a young quarterback and you want to bounce questions off somebody, you're bouncing questions off this young man because he's been there before. Julian Sane never played really in a competitive game. We've seen him in mop-up duty, but he's never played a competitive college game. So if those questions come up, Eli might have some answers for him. And just, again, to bring that veteran presence to the room, it's not going to disrupt the room. You can't get a guy like, a Billy Edwards, right, from Maryland, or some of these guys that are going to come in and expect to start. You want to get a guy for this role, it's going to have to be someone like this who probably has no illusions. I mean, look, he's a competitor, so I'm sure he expects to start, but he's not going to cause problems if he does not start at the Ohio State University. And then again, look, best case scenario, could he potentially be like a wildcat in certain situations? I'm not ruling it out. I wouldn't, it's not exactly Terrell Pryor from a stature standpoint, but it's not impossible that you can see this guy coming in for packages, right? He's going to be on the roster. So once he's on the roster, anything can happen. I do think he does have some dynamic ability, certainly at this level. Maybe not at the Big Ten level, but look, he can make guys miss. He can break tackles. He does it consistently, as you see in these highlights. Quick trigger again. Kind of reminds me of a Reese Poffenbarger, who was one of the top quarterbacks in FCS for University of Albany, went to Miami last year as a backup, just recently signed with North Texas. I see some of that with this guy in terms of just the size, the ability to make plays off script, the quick release, the way they run. So that's a comp for me. And Reese Poffenbarger is going to start games here in the FBS. So this is not just if you're comparing this guy to a walk-on, he is going to come out favorably in that comparison. And that's how I think you got to look at it from an Ohio State perspective. You're not sacrificing anything to get this guy, and he's going to be better than whatever walk-on you had as your fourth string quarterback. So interesting story. If this guy ever plays, that ESPN is not going to stop talking about him coming from Hungary and all the stuff that he's done to get to this point. But an exciting player, a cool addition, a cool story. And I cannot think of somebody who's gone from FCS, from historically black college university, over to Houston Christian, over to Hungary, over to Ohio State. This guy's had the full college experience for sure, as far as seeing different places. And it's all because of that right arm and the ability to move that he has. So shout out to Eli Brickhandler, one of the best names in college football right away, and one of the coolest stories. Ohio State fans, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about all the pickups, big and small, quirky and top of the food chain commits. We'll talk about all of it here on Group Chat Sports. Like and subscribe to this channel.